Welcome to Voice of Our Own. I'm Allison Kinnear. I don't know if you recognize me with my quarantine haircut here, but yeah, I thought I'd go for a whole new look, and then I got a little Edward Scissorhandsy on myself. So I'm just, we're all rocking the new do's. If you've got a new quarantine haircut, put it in the comments. I'd love to see it. But this is mine. I figure hair grows, right? I'm good. I'm good. Today we are talking about navigating politics. This came to me because a friend of mine reached out and said, "Oh my gosh, I just got into a shouting match with, a virtual shouting match on social media with somebody and around politics. And can you talk about that?" And so I love it. I love it when people reach out to me and say, "Hey, can you talk about this topic?" And so if you ever have a topic that you're like, "I'd really love to hear Allison's thoughts on that," just go ahead and send it to me. You can personal message me or email or whatever fits your style of communication. And the first thing that I just want to say about politics is that it's not something that I tend to talk about in this forum. However, we are in an election year during a global pandemic, and the election is coming a lot faster than any of us are anticipating. And so it's that political lens is going to be on a lot of people's minds. And everyone's going to have a wide range of beliefs. Our country is getting, in the United States, our country is getting more and more polarized and more divided. And so I wanted to share a couple of thoughts about what you can do more specifically when it comes to the online social media forum, as opposed to in person. That's a whole other dialogue. But kind of rules of engagement. And one of the things that really stands out, and we know a lot of us know this, but one of the things that really stands out is just making sure it comes from a credible source. Whatever you are going to share or whatever you're going to respond to, making sure that it comes from a credible source. And it's got to be beyond the headline. The headline is one thing, but the only purpose of a headline is to grab someone's attention and make them open the article. That's the only purpose of a headline. And so oftentimes headlines are super sensationalized. And if we just read the headlines and make assumptions, then we're going to find ourselves polarizing even more. We're going to find ourselves in our echo chambers even more. The danger of this is, I'm telling you, I watched the Captain America Civil War last night, and there's so many gems in that movie. But that quote around, I can attack someone, like any enemy will be able to rise again if they're focused on a common enemy. But if they tear each other apart, then they'll never rise. And, that was humbling for me, because when I want to attack, when I get so upset over inflammatory political rhetoric, I do. We all get that emotional response. We get that anger response, and we want to kind of lash out at people. But that's also us fighting each other, and we're instead of fighting where our anger really needs to be directed toward. And oftentimes, when we look at where our anger needs to be directed toward, we tend to have a lot more in common than we think. So, for example, right now, a lot of what's happening is that some people are saying we need to go back to work, and other people are saying, "Oh my gosh, will you just stay home?" And those two camps seem completely divided, and it's really easy for each camp to get really upset with each other. But what's really, I think, what people are mostly upset with is that we don't have a system to support people during this time, so that people aren't feeling in dire need of losing their homes or losing electricity or losing their food, right? Like we don't want that to happen to anybody. We want for people to be able to live. And now we might have different ideas about what systems can support us, but in this country, we don't have a lot of systems So some people are feeling more and more desperate because the only way to get money is to work, and other people, and potentially maybe expose yourself to the pandemic, which is why it's hard to take the pandemic seriously when your threat is not being able to put food on the table. And then conversely, there are other people who are like, oh my gosh, at any cost, they can say, stay home at any cost, but who knows how many financial resources that they have or what other kind of supports that are already in place in order to keep that perspective. So it's not an either or, it's more like a both and. And for a great resource, I want to share a shout out. Y'all know I like Brene Brown. I love Brene Brown. She's got this book called Braving the Wilderness. She wrote it several years ago. I think it's probably her least quoted book, and I think it's more than likely her least popular book. I see all of her other books really being quoted and cited a lot, but Braving the Wilderness is really addressing head on with research about those political divisions and how they can really tear people up, and how the dangers of othering people. So this happens on both sides. I see it on my Facebook stream all the time, where there's name calling of the president, name calling of the people who support the president, name calling of the people who don't support the president, all this kind of constant name calling. And that just, what that does is it obliterates connection, and it creates that, when people are divided, then they don't rise back up, right? It's hard to remember that these are human beings on the other side of the keyboard. And it's hard to hold back. We can get so tempted. It's like a little siren song. Our fingers get so itchy to just blast people out. And I'm not saying allow harmful behavior, because some of the things that people do share, some of the comments people make, is harmful. It's harmful to people directly. It's harmful to marginalized people particularly. And so if it's harmful behavior, it does need to be addressed swiftly and immediately. And there's some resources for that. I just learned of a resource. Let me see if I have it here. White Nonsense Roundup. So if you're a person of color and you're getting attacked by white people, this White Nonsense Roundup are white people who will come in and basically stand up for you, so you're not having to stand up for yourself while also being traumatized. So there's resource, and that's just one, right? Like there's so many resources available to be able to prevent further harm. And that's one of the things that you can be on the lookout to do, is to be that gatekeeper, to use whatever privilege you have, whether it's being white, cisgender, heterosexual, whatever it is, to be able to hold those limitations around making sure certain populations aren't harmed. And we also have to make sure we're not participating in the harm. These are human beings after all. They have wildly different beliefs. They may not be aware of harm that's being done. Oftentimes people are not. I remember talking to a friend of mine who's an actress, and she was saying, the villain never considers themselves to be the villain. The villain is completely righteous in their beliefs. And we all can be righteous in our beliefs. I always think about righteousness as this glinty hammer that is so tempting, and it feels so good in our hands, and we just want to beat the crap out of people who are not on our path of righteousness. But we have to be mindful and leave that glinty hammer alone, because it's not that somebody's trying to be harmful necessarily. They may think that what they're doing is right. They may think that what they're doing is standing up for other people, but they may not be aware of all the impacts that has, because we're all limited. We all are limited. And I will say, in all of this, I've done harm. I know I have. I know I've been on the other side of things, and I've said things and created fractures in trusting relationships. So I've been on both sides of that. We all can go there. But the important thing is to pause and ask ourselves, is this the battle I have the mental, emotional, and time capacity for? is this person really going to change their mind? Am I going to change my mind? And if the answer to that is no, like, nope, they're too far gone, right? Like they're too far, we are too far on a political polarized way, then it's not necessarily helpful to engage. It ends up doing more damage to ourselves than it actually helps promote the progress of the situation. And along those lines, it's like if we're feeling upset, if we're feeling angry, rightfully so, I think we all have a lot of reasons to feel angry about things. Instead of attacking each other, we can then look up and go, wait a second, what systems are in play in our society that I'm really angry about? And how can I direct my efforts in a more productive way? Because that anger can be fuel. And so how can I direct that anger, use it as fuel to be able to actually have more powerful impacts than getting in a shouting match with somebody else? And I get it. We all know we shouldn't necessarily get into it. And so that's that moment of pause. That's that moment to take a break, to pause, and to get really clear, what is this anger towards? Because we can really misdirect it. We can really start sending it to the people who are following whatever ideologies. But it's really different to be able to say, it's not necessarily for the followers, but rather it's the ideologies that I'm more angry with, or I'm more angry with the people in power who are enforcing those ideologies. And the other part to all of this is to be open. I certainly have my beliefs, and there are certain things that I am like, you will not move me. I am here. This is where I stand. And yet it's also important to really make sure that we're doing some listening, because similar to going behind, it's like there's the headline, but we need to read the article. And I think that's what happens with us when people comment. They're making a comment and it's just like a headline. We can't make assumptions just based on the inflammatory comment. We can also take a look deeper and go, what is this person afraid of? What is this person worried about? What is this person angry about? What is this person seeing that I'm seeing differently? To kind of lead with that curiosity is really powerful. It's really a whole different way to see things, because the cure to this division is empathy. And when we can get into that curious space, then we can find that we can empathize. And then people are not engaging with us from a combative point of view, but they're engaging with us from more an empathic. And that's where healing happens. And once again, I'm not saying condone harmful behavior, racist behavior, misogynist behavior. I'm not saying just turn a blind eye to that. That absolutely needs to be called out. However, there is other behavior that can kind of be on the fringes. And you can offer, I know one person I wasn't close to, I kind of knew peripherally. She posted something that was really racist on her page. And I said, I don't know if this is your intention, but I just wanted to let you know that this meme is pretty racist. And if you would like to have a conversation about that, I'm more than happy to. But otherwise, I totally understand. I just tried to be gentle, but also call it out. And I got this wave of vitriol from her friends. And then they got a wave of vitriol from people who were standing in my position. But I backed out. I was like, look, this was a gentle offering, and I understand this is a hard thing to say. It's a hard thing to hear. And if you want to learn more, I'm more than happy to engage in that conversation. But otherwise, but I wasn't going to allow that to go on. But I also was really clear, I'm not going to engage, because when you get that defensive response back, it's like that person's not ready. And so we have to let that go. But I did my part. So I will leave you with that. I know that's a long one. One thing for the VIP, if anybody's in the VIP pass, I'll put a link for that. There is a handy dandy worksheet that I just created around considering the source, do no harm, choose your battles, keep it productive, thought-provoking questions that you can ask yourself to when the politics are high. It is helpful not only in social media, but it's helpful when it comes to family dynamics and all of that kind of good stuff. So that's in the VIP pass. I hope this was helpful. If you have any comments, please let me know. And I will see you next week. I wish you a full week of living and learning and navigating this political landscape. And I will see you tomorrow, or not tomorrow, next week. Take care. Bye.